Welcome to another edition of Cool Cars, Interesting People. Today, he is the guru of Lethbridge news. He's been in the business for well over 40 years. From CTV, it's Terry Vogt. And we got to get a cool car for him. And from Street Wheelers, Raymond Houpe is here. We've got the Thing. The Thing looks like, it looks like it's a Halloween vehicle.
Well, it does. It's an odd vehicle for sure, yeah.
When you say odd, yeah, I have to go along with you on that. Explain what the Thing is, what got you interested and why you wanted it.
Well, I was a kid. I can't remember how old, but I seen one in Vancouver. It was square, it was ugly, and I had to ask what it was, and so for a long time I wanted one, and I had heard about one. And this car here I've owned for about 16, 17 years now.
Right. So who would ultimately want this? I mean, what's the practicality of this vehicle?
I think it's more suited to Mexico or hot island places.
Yeah.
This was sold in Calgary, this car, but I don't think they really took off in Canada like like down there for practicality reasons.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of beaches around Lethbridge.
No.
We can take it out to Park Lake, I guess.
I can stuff the surfboard in it, but I can't run the surfboard. But.
No, this is kind of a utilitarian type of car.
Yeah, very utilitarian. Yeah, you just basically got your speedometer, your fuel gauge, and that's it. No power, no luxury, nothing in there.
No.
Yeah.
Do you drive it very often?
I try and drive it as much as I can, but no. I mean, you want something that'll do the highway speed. That's not the car. You want something with heat. That's not the car. So, but I do try and drive it as much as I can. Yeah.
And it's got those beautiful wooden floor mats.
Yeah, those are European kind of design.
Really?
They're not original for the car, but they're original for the design. So.
And well, the seal is fantastic as well.
Yes, well, the wind will blow through your hair. The water will come in. Don't take it through the car wash. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the use of the vehicle. We'll go find Terry Vogt from CTV. CTV. Looking for Terry Vogt. Terry?
Yes.
Good to see you.
Hello, Mark. How are you? Good.
The grandfather of news.
The grandfather of news. I guess I like that.
Yeah, okay. Let's go. I
should tell you, though, Daryl Rommel, one of my co-workers, would have said the G-Daddy.
The G-Daddy. Okay.
News, so.
I'm not that hip. And I'll prove it to you with the vehicle I got for you, too. I'm warning you.
Okay.
It's called the Thing, all right? Okay. Come on this way. This thing is it's called the Thing.
Looks good. Odd VW.
Yeah, it's
a
made
good license plate.
It's a street wheeler guy, Raymond Houpe, who's got this, and he calls it utilitarian. It's kind of really simple. We're hoping it gets us to the lodge.
Okay.
Come on. Careful, it's really the metal is really hard on the knees. And really nice floor mats.
Okay. Climb in here. There we go.
Yeah. Now,
So we're heading to the beach.
Heading to the beach. This is the way to do it, man. You can see that it's really nicely sealed.
Yeah. Sort of reminds me of our old Volkswagen that we first drove.
What kind of?
It was like
was it a Beetle?
Yeah, Beetle. We used to drive it to college, and the windshield wipers didn't work. So on a foggy or rainy day, you pretty well had to reach out and reach around and make them go on their own with your hand.
Well,
Which was if it was cold.
Well, Volkswagens were notorious for not being able to provide much heat, right?
Right.
Because wasn't it right there beside you?
Yeah, the heater didn't work very well in the winter, so it made for some interesting drives. We would drive from Picture Butte to the college, and you had to bundle up pretty good.
Because you are a college grad from Picture Butte.
Yes. Which you sound like that's unusual.
No,
there's a lot of Picture Butte college grads.
No, actually, there's a lot of. I mean, Hal Anderson is the 32nd most famous Canadian of all time.
Uh-huh.
And Marv Gunderson.
Marv, yeah.
Yeah, and you.
That's
Who
right.
else? Who else is famous?
From Picture View?
Yeah.
Cor Van Ray.
Oh, hey. You know, I've always said that Picture Butte should have, for tourism, their slogan should be, "Welcome to Picture Butte, go ahead and fart." How do you like that? I think
Yeah.
Picture...
They may not go for that, but
I'm sure I've offended I mean that with love.
when I grew up there, though, there wasn't really a cattle industry. It was all sugar beets back in those days.
Right.
So.
Okay, gotta
Do you want me to push?
stand by. Okay, we're good. This is good at least.
That's what happened in the old days. You parked downhill so that you didn't have to push when you got to start your car.
At least it's going to be an adventure for you, or for us. So what after your Volkswagen? What was the next decent car that you got?
Oh, the next decent car.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, I don't know. Well, it was probably a Honda Civic.
Oh, which is so decent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
We had an old, before, like when I was a young guy, I had a Chevy Impala that was kind of interesting too. I mentioned that you could started without a key basically, so if you forgot your keys or whatever, you could just turn the ignition and the whole thing started.
That was back in the day that nobody wanted to steal a Chevy Impala.
I think maybe in those days, and I might be dating myself, but they probably had 10 standard keys for every vehicle, so chances are your key started
Something
every
would work.
10th Chevy Impala sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
Kind of loud in here, isn't it? Could probably take this to Iran or Iraq and not worry about getting bombed. Oh, I hope I'm not insulting Ryan or Raymond. It's just something I'm not used to. It's good for good for the beach.
it's fun.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. All right. So how come you stayed in Lethbridge all these years? I imagine you get that asked all the time, or do you? I don't know.
Well, every once in a while, people ask that, but I've never been, I guess, career-driven in terms of I didn't have to work in the biggest cities. I mean, we did move away for a while.
Yeah, you went to Calgary.
Mostly, though, because I was encouraged to do that by some of the guys that I had been working with at Czech Radio at the time, who all went up and began working for CHQR.
Right.
So there was Larry Etling and Vern Coop.
Vern Coop, yeah.
And they kind of convinced me to move up to Calgary and work with them too. So it was kind of like going to home in Calgary.
Right, because you had
coworkers.
People, yeah. And what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was a great experience. In those days, radio was still going strong, and we actually at the time, Czech Radio was, for news-wise, Czech Radio had switched to the 2020 format.
2020.
And you were down to 3-minute newscasts or 90 seconds or whatever, and QR was actually a very news-oriented radio station. So that's one of the reasons I went there, is because their whole focus was news. I mean, they did music too, but it would be a few years after that they switched to talk radio.
Yeah.
But at that time they were doing music, but they also had hour-long newscasts at lunch in the morning. And
well, were you always a news guy? Was that always your thing? Was that when you went to the college, you say, I'm here to do news? Were you a news junkie, or what were you?
No, I was a DJ to start with. So back in the old... I think, to tell you the truth, Mark, initially what got us interested is when we were little kids, probably around 6, 7, 8 years old, we used to listen to Hockey Night in Canada all the time, and we had a tabletop hockey game. My dad had a tape recorder.
Right,
and
so you did play-by-play.
And I did play-by-play of our tabletop hockey, and it was... we each had our teams. I was the Detroit Red Wings, and my my brother was always Toronto Maple Leafs, and one of our friends was the Montreal Canadiens, and so we had all the players, and we knew who they were, and we kept stats and scoring, and I just started doing the play-by-play, and then I thought, it would be really a lot of fun to do play-by-play. So that's what initially got me interested in broadcasting. I think I wanted to be like Danny Gallivan or Foster Hewitt or something. So
that sounds familiar. That's exactly. He is probably the epitome of hockey broadcasters, Danny Gallivan, I would think. Excuse me. Sorry.
So I ended up taking radio arts at the college, and I was initially hired to do we were actually doing a college radio program, and it was running on CJOC at the time, which is now the River. And anyway, back then it would run early Sunday mornings, but Bob Lang, who was the program director at CJOC at the time, offered me either a part-time job or a full-time job, and I said, well, I'll take the full-time job. So
wow.
So you talk about Hal Anderson. He was actually scheduled to go to the Crow's Nest Pass and open up CJPR.
Hal Anderson?
Hal. No.
No.
Okay, got my Andersons.
Yeah, no, I know. I know. Yeah, different guy. Yeah.
Anyway, they had a broadcaster who was scheduled to go to the Crow's Nest Pass, and I was brought in to train to take over the night shift from him.
That's back in the day when they had night shifts.
Right. Yeah, all night. The all-nighter at CJOC. And I did probably about 2 months of training, and then his wife said she didn't want to move to the Crow's Nest Pass, so Bob Lang came in and said, you're going to be doing the morning shift in the Crow's Nest Pass next month.
Oh, wow. Hold that thought.
So,
let's go get a coffee.
Okay.
Crow's Nest Pass. Oh yeah, how do you get out of here? Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, how do you get out?
Eat the jaws of life. Okay, so Terry, we left it at Crow's Nest Pass. You got the job at the Crow's Nest.
I got the job at the Crow's Nest because Keith Anderson, who was another picture
Keith
boy.
Anderson. Okay, all right.
So his wife decided at the last minute she wasn't going to move to the Crow's Nest Pass. So Bob Lang, who was the program director at the time, said, you're going to be going up to the Crow's Nest Pass and starting the radio station there. So there was me and Daryl Ferguson, and we had a receptionist, secretary, copywriter who went along with us, Mary. Yeah. And basically I never did really do an all-night shift, which was fortunate because I wasn't very good at 3 in the morning.
So what did you do? You did the morning show? No.
We went straight to the morning show. So
Mr. Big Time.
And then
Grandpa G's a big time.
Well, it was kind of like we did a segment starting at 6 and then from 6 to 9 or whatever, and then I read a newscast and some local community announcements and things, and then went and covered city council and did other things like that. Covered the past Red Devils and some of the community events. Yeah. And that's really how I began to get interested in news. And after doing that for a while, I started to enjoy the community part of it and the going out and covering things more than I was enjoying being sort of cooped
being
up.
All the air, talking about people every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, telling the big jokes.
So one of my friends, Paul Tessier at the time, who was working at Czech Radio, he was doing all nights across the street, by the way, when I was at CJOC. So
right, yeah. He was at Czech,
Right, when I was training at CJOC, he was the all-night disc jockey at Czech, and we would phone each other to keep each other awake. So we'd be doing our own shows, but talking back and forth and getting the operators from the phone operators. They would get in on the conversation.
Phone operators?
Yeah, we would have chats with the girls who were doing the all-night stuff.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like long-distance calls and stuff.
May I connect your call?
No, but they would be like, they would phone to request a song because they had to be up all night.
Right. Okay.
So then they would patch both of us in together along with the telephone operators in those days.
Oh, wow.
And we'd have like us and a couple of young phone operators, and we'd keep each other up all night.
How often did you go meet those phone operators?
A couple of times.
Should we leave it at that?
I said, yeah, no. We always suspected that we would say, let's meet for coffee, and we'd go and nobody would show up. And we suspected that they would see us and then not show up. They were probably waiting over somewhere watching for us.
So did you actually meet them then?
No. No, they never showed up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You're doing a really good job. Thank you. Is it hot? Oh, God. Thank you. Okay, so
then the crow's nest passed.
But then you're back in CJ. No, you didn't.
Yeah, well,
okay.
it was in the past, and then one of the things I also did was every Friday they had their local MLA or MP come on and do a phone-in kind of show. So past residents could phone in and ask questions, and at the time Joe Clark was the MP.
For Calgary.
And
Joe Clark,
because his riding went all the way from Banff or something all the way down to Waterton. So he would come in on Fridays and do the
as in the former
show.
Prime Minister Joe Clark.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So in those days he was just an MP, but he did go on to become Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And so when they had a news opening at Czech Radio, he phoned me up and said, "Hey, you should apply for this."
Hey,
and
Terry,
gave me
you
the
should
inside
apply.
scoop.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So I did, and I got the job. And our news director at that time was Morley McGill.
Morley
at
McGill,
Czech Radio.
Yeah.
So
And then, so how long were you at Czech then?
probably about 7 years, 6 or 7, 6 years.
Because I mean,
7
I got
years.
to work with you for a few years. 74 when I started, and you were still doing the news.
Right.
Yeah.
So I probably started a year before you at Czech,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
maybe, and then stayed till, I don't know, 79 or 80 or something like that.
Is that when you went to QR?
Went to QR.
Yeah. Can I just say that how much I hated Vern Coop? Because
of his voice?
His voice, because we were in radio arts together, and everyone's saying, Doug Krasnowski, present. Mark Campbell, present. Vern Coop, he just had that amazing voice, and he got a job right out of college.
Here's a farm kid who went straight from college to Calgary.
Yeah.
Because of his voice.
And he stayed at QR for his entire career.
Right.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, sidetrack. So you went to Calgary, and then what made you come back to Lethbridge again after QR?
Well, I think it was just lifestyle. Part of it. In Calgary, I mean, it was a great opportunity, and it was a really good time for radio. And I actually, it was kind of funny because when they first offered me a job in Calgary, it was like, can you come do the all night news or whatever? And I'm like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And then they would phone back, and it was partly Larry and Vern talking to the news director up there and saying, you should get this guy. And so then they would offer me, like, well, how about nights then? I'm like, no, I don't think so. So then the third call was like, well, how about 9 to 5 and you would be our beat reporter?
Oh.
I was like, 9 to 5? Yeah, I'll do that. So sure, when do you want me? And then, so it was kind of a lifestyle thing that I went to the big market for. But I also found out that in those days, I mean, and Calgary's still a booming place, but news doesn't stop. News goes beyond 9 to 5.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So as a beat reporter in Calgary, I was often out,
Past 9.
Past 9 at night, and then also first thing in the morning you get a call, well, there's been a murder here, or, there's a Chamber of Commerce meeting, or the Prime Minister's coming, or... So I was often starting at 7 and going home maybe for supper and then going back to work again. And I just found, I thought if I stay in that kind of a lifestyle, I'm going to burn out pretty fast.
Yeah, because it doesn't stop.
And we were thinking about having a young family at that time, and we were thinking about starting a family, and we just decided if we're going to do that, we should consider going back to a smaller community and doing it.
So did you
and we wanted to be close to our grandparents, or not our grandparents, but our kids' grandparents.
Yeah.
So.
And so did you approach CTV, or did they approach you? How did
No, it was actually, what happened was Czech Radio was looking for a news director at that time.
Right.
And so I was offered a job to come back to Czech.
Oh, Czech, okay. Right.
So I came back to Czech and worked there as news director for a few years, and then Derek de Bolt, who I had worked with before, and now I was at Czech, but he had gone to CFCN at the time,
Right.
along with Bruce Mitchell, who is
Mitchell, yeah.
and Shale Gelfand,
Oh,
who
yeah. These
were
are-
all former Czech
Yeah.
employees.
My past is coming back, yes.
Right. Those are all guys we worked with at
Yeah.
Czech Radio. And they're saying, you should come to CFCN, work with us.
Right.
So again, it was kind of here's my buddies saying, come,
yeah.
come, there's a job opening here or whatever. And Derek was the news director at CFCN at the time. So I said, well, I'm news director at Czech, and maybe you can't afford me. And they did some juggling and did some things, and it worked out.
They
And
afforded
so-
you, yeah. And that was what? What year was that? What's it been?
That was 1985.
85, and you've been there ever since?
And I've been here ever since.
Holy cow, man! That's a pretty good run. And you're still having fun at it, right? And
That's what sort of kept me involved. Is I mean, it's not. I always said it's like better than having a job.
Yeah.
You can understand that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
broadcasting is
Any monkey can do it.
pretty well. But I think it was kind of funny because I think when I was younger, I was kind of shy and I didn't get out, and I would see the beat reporters in Calgary working. Ralph Klein was one of them at the time, but he was working for CFCN then. But all these guys, and they would go, they would meet people, they would go out and have coffee, and they would have coffee with the police officers and meet people in the bars and do this. And I wasn't really that kind of a social person, and I didn't think that was it wasn't my style.
Right.
But the more comfortable I got with meeting people and talking to people, the more it became.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
And now
so
you're
I
in
can.
now
I'll
you're
go
in
for coffee with anybody anytime.
and a beer.
now, and a beer.
Which is why you're in a 12-step program now, right?
Right. Pretty well. Why I should be.
But I mean that creates all of the contacts that you get. I mean, and you brought that into Lethbridge, and you've got a contact for every possible scenario in this town. I would imagine.
If you've been doing it long enough, I think.
Yeah. You certainly know who you should call first time.
Usually.
Yeah.
And you've been through a lot of the scenarios before, so you kind of. It's a lot easier that way.
Sure.
But I have to say that being in the market for a long time helps in a lot of ways too, because if you have to go door knocking or something, you see the young reporters and they sometimes struggle with that because they have to, as soon as if I'm door knocking in a neighborhood, people will open and say, we were wondering when you were going to come.
That guy from the news.
So it makes it a lot easier.
Speaking of that, when you're doing the door knocking, and then that's getting into those serious news stories, like for example a murder or something tragic or a death of a child, and you have to make the decision. Do we go and talk to the family? Is that newsworthy? Is the family going to be able to handle it? What's your approach on something like that?
Well, we always we discuss it kind of as a group before we do any of those stories. But I think the standard nowadays is that you do approach the family.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've come sort of to accept that as being part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I would hate.
It's always a difficult part.
Yeah.
But over the years, I've also learned that everybody responds to different situations differently.
Right.
And there are some people who want privacy, and there are some people who want to speak.
Right.
And there are some people who really want to tell a story.
Yeah.
So unless you contact them, you don't know which ones of those people they are.
Because I mean, I think about, for example, the tragedy in Claire's home, with the murders and the families that you had to deal with. How did that work out for you? I mean, you've got the parents of the ones that were murderers, and you got the parents of the murderer.
Right.
Those are people that you want them to tell their side of the story, but yet that's a difficult approach, right?
Yeah.
How did that come down?
It's really difficult,
Yeah.
and I've been fortunate over the years too. We have a really good team of people. I've always believed that if you surround yourself with good people, then it makes the job a lot easier.
Yeah.
And we have, my coworkers are all good at what they do, and so we sort of break it up, and somebody will take one part of it, and somebody will take another part, and There'll be situations where somebody may be uncomfortable with doing something, so usually somebody else will step up.
Yeah.
Being the veteran, I'll tend to say, well, I'll do it if nobody else will too, but
So what's your approach to talking to someone who just lost their child or their son in a horrific murder that you want to hear their story? What's that phone call like?
Usually it's just hello, I introduce myself and say where I'm from, and then you find out right away if they're going to talk to you or not. Some will say, we don't want to speak to anybody, thanks, and they hang up. Some will say, now's not a good time. Some will say, let me get somebody else, and they may have a cousin or a brother or something who's willing to talk. Usually the first phone call is more about making contact and saying, and then you get the odd ones who just, it's sort of like getting your call when your grandma passes away or something. You get lots of friends and everybody phoning, and some of them just will talk to you right off the bat about the person too. So.
Talk about the
and often what we want to do, and when I do these stories, I try to tell the individuals we don't want to focus on necessarily the sad part of it, the tragic part of it. What we want to focus on is what you remember or want people to know about your loved one. And that's usually something that they want to talk about.
Sure.
Because you've lost somebody precious to you, and you want to let other people know why that person was special. So,
what about when the big politicians come to town? Like even if Trudeau would be here, or whoever, Rachel Notley. Those are usually media scrums. You usually don't get a one-on-one. How do you like dealing with that sort of stuff?
I don't mind it. I
elbows.
No,
Gordie Howe.
The worst one was when royal couples come, because then you have all the British media that you're dealing with. And stuff.
You must have done? Did you do Ferguson?
We did Sarah,
Fergie?
yeah.
Oh, up in Fort McLeod?
Yeah.
Oh, what was so yeah?
Oh, that was interesting because I actually did a story just about the media coverage of them.
Yes.
But you had I don't think they were called paparazzi in those days because maybe the movie hadn't come out yet or something. but it was pretty interesting because you'd have the British guys would for sure try to get in front of everybody else, and they would be yelling at people to get down. Like I remember there was, you'd have the royal couple would be going out to greet somebody, and a person would walk by in front of them or something, and they'd say, "Lady, we're not here to get you. Get down or get out of the way, lady." Or,
is that your best British accent?
No, I don't do accents. That's you.
Well, please. No. So, did you actually get a chance to talk to Fergie?
Oh yeah,
you did.
And I've also talked to Philip.
Did you? Philip.
And that was an interesting one because it was funny. It was in Calgary, and we're all in like the Palace or Hotel ballroom or something. And before he comes out, and it was basically a situation where he sits at a podium, and then everybody sits in the crowd, and then they come in and they tell you about protocol and how you first you say your name and where you're from, and then you introduce yourself, and you always say Your Royal Highness first, and this sort of thing, and everybody's like yeah, and you get out there, and then it's like some guy jumps up and says, "So what do you think about?" And the protocol is out the window, right?
No one's doing it.
And you can see all these guys are going, "Oh, no."
So did you do the protocol? Were you good? Or
I think I did, yeah. But it was kind of funny because he's somebody who's heard every question around. Yeah. And so even when there were serious questions, he tried to, he just had a quick answer that basically didn't say anything. But it did bring some chuckles up usually or something.
The Queen and I do have sex every once in a while.
I don't think that came
up.
It
didn't?
But I think there was a question about women in the military, I think. And I think his response, it was something like, Oh, I like women, and I think that was it. And everybody chuckled and then went on to the next question. So it wasn't.
I know. I mean, we're talking 44 years of media, and all those years at the CTV and doing stories. What comes to your mind when you think of that was an amazing story, or that was a weird one, or that was the wildest? What comes to mind when you think of, if you're compiling the greatest hits?
Ooh.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily say that the worst ones were the greatest ones, but I would obviously one of the ones that probably had one of the biggest impacts on the community was probably back in the 1989-90 when there were a series of teen suicides.
Was that the when they were talking about the cattle mutilations, or there was cults?
There were cults.
Yeah. I remember
Satanism
that.
And that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we won an RTNDA award. It was the RTNDA at those days. Now it's the RNTDA.
Model letters.
But we won an award for continuing coverage on that one.
Yeah.
But it got really weird because you were dealing with young people and school systems and police and families that had tragedy. And so, and we had young kids of our own at that time, so it was kind of, you were wondering, are they going to get caught up in something like this?
Yeah. So that's one of the ones that comes to mind for you.
Yeah, because there was all kinds of stuff. I mean, kids would take us to basements where they did satanic rituals, and we went down into some of the storm sewers where people were sleeping or having parties, and it was just sort of surreal.
What was the result of all of that? How did that all end up? Do you remember?
Well, I think there were people who actually left the community because of it. People who were either involved with the families or somehow had been accused of being involved with Satanism and that sort of thing. And I think they were forced to leave and move to other cities.
Wow.
There were, I know that some of the families still haven't gotten over the whole thing. For the police, it was really strange too, because they had investigations going on into cult activity and stuff, and I don't think up until then anybody had ever done anything like that.
Right.
And there were reports that came out after that talked about how many cults were actually operating in southern Alberta, and I think there were over a dozen or something.
Wow, kind of frightening. The other story that comes to mind, because it got such national attention, is the Dar Hetherington story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What are your memories of that?
I missed most of that one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Where the hell were you?
I still get joked about because we were in Hawaii at the time, and I'm flying back from Hawaii on an airplane, and I can't remember who was maybe it was Lloyd Robertson or something comes on, and it's like Lethbridge Alderman.
What?
So I was like, oh, that's interesting. In those days, we didn't have all the cell phones and stuff. So I didn't really know what was going on until we landed, and then we were sort of caught up in it.
But that story went on and on and on for a while.
Yeah, it did too.
So what was your, was it important to keep covering that? I mean, nationally, everyone was interested in it.
Oh yeah, it was, and that's one of the ones that you probably don't. I don't know. You kind of wonder what the value of doing something like that is, but you do have. I've been involved in the business long enough too that I know that there are other people that want stuff like that. So we have to fulfill those demands as well.
Yeah.
So,
would you ever like to sit down with Dar?
It's sad for the family.
Yeah. But would you ever like to sit down with Dar now and just say, okay, what happened?
I haven't thought of that actually, but
give her a call. But anyway, changing the subject. Obviously, news.
Maybe you should get her on
It's
this
cool
show.
Cars, yeah. Let's get her in that. Get into the thing. See where we end up. We won't be able to cross the border with that thing. But anyway, that's another story. News has evolved so much. Both of us are so familiar with from really big newsrooms, both global and CTV, and now we're down to the bare minimums. Where do you see this going right now? Where do people want to see their news? Because I know the big push now is online. Everybody's got a Facebook page. Everyone's saying go to our whatever, the real 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock newscast, is it going away? Is it going to still be there, or what's your take on it?
I can't predict that.
Yeah.
I think the struggle the industry has is they know that a lot of people are watching online now, and you're struggling with how to get your message out there and make money doing it too.
Right. Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. They're all going with, they're putting more stuff online. It makes it harder in some ways for us because it is no longer now it's become a 24-hour-a-day job, and you have people that can do this from anywhere in the world. So we're trying to cover local events, and we focus on that. But you also have people throughout the country who can do that. So if they're interested in a specific story, they can make some phone calls and then post it online, and then it's like we have to catch up because we don't sort of necessarily have the luxury of sort of just doing what we want to do every day. We also have to cover everything else that's happening too. So I don't know. My advice just for young people who want to get into the business is be as flexible as possible, because
learn everything
because
you're
who
going to
knows
get
where
cut.
it's going to go.
You really don't. You got to know it all. You got to know how to edit. You got to know how to shoot. You got to know how to tell a story.
I
write
still
a story.
don't know how to shoot. I'm one of the few, actually.
Yeah, that's right. Because everyone's a videographer now.
Everybody who comes in now, the young people still. They don't. I'll ask them to teach me, and nobody wants to teach me. I don't know why.
What about that? I mean, you're in your 60s now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, you're the granddaddy of news. What's it like to be in a G-dad? What's happening on that? What's I mean, where do you fit in with everybody, the young kids that are coming up? I guess you're sort of the guy that teaches everybody nowadays, is it? Or, I mean, you become co-workers at the same time?
Yeah.
I mean, what's that relationship like?
I think I can teach them in some ways, and I think there's a lot of good, sharp, young kids getting into the business, and you don't need to teach them too much.
Right.
I think you have to tell them, there are phone numbers in a phone book and things like that, which they often, they're looking up Canada 411 and saying, it's not here. And they check the phone book and then they find it or something. But, nobody's responding to them on Facebook, and I have to tell them, maybe you should drive down there and see what's...
Do it the old way.
But, in some ways, I think I hopefully teach them about storytelling and
because everybody,
sort of
I mean, that's the whole key, isn't it? It's telling the story. That's kind of the bottom line. Tell the story, tell it well.
Yeah,
is that fair?
And that's one of the things that I've always. You asked me before too, why do you stay local? And I don't know, because I was never really career driven in terms of I want to be on the big stage or whatever. But I also like the freedom of being able to do my own. Tell stories my own way without having 13 people from a national news desk telling me,
here's how you should tell it, I'll tell you.
It should be shorter, and it should be... I mean, I've done my share of national stories and stuff, but they wanted it, like... I used to push the envelope a little. I'd say, well, it's 137 long, and they'd say, it has to be 135. I'm like, well, I can't take out two... And they'd find two words that I would... take out. So then you revoice it.
Those are my two words.
But I mean, that's the sort of thing I didn't want to do, because I think a lot of stories are more important than telling them in a minute 35. And I can see where they're coming from, because they're looking at a national audience and they don't necessarily want every little detail. But I've always felt that people in Lethbridge and Cold Ale and the Crow's Nest Pass are just as important as people in Toronto, and that they deserve their own, you know, to know what's happening.
Well, and you know, this is one of the reasons I like to do what I'm doing right now with you. Is, you know, this is more than a minute 35. You know, and I like to hear the whole story. You know, and if people want to sit down and listen to it all, that's great, because I want to hear it all. That's I mean, that's what I personally like. That is there. Are there stories that you say, no, we can't do that? We won't do that kind of a thing. I mean, is there things that you've just said, no, this is not?
I don't think so.
No.
Do you have any in mind?
Oh, I'm thinking pole dancing.
We often get asked about things like suicides
Yeah,
and stuff. And our policy basically is that if it's a private matter and it's not a public person, then we probably won't cover it. But if it's a suicide that's done in a way that involves police and the community, then we probably will cover it.
Yeah. Like bombings, for example. You know, people are saying, you know, why are you telling us about the bombings? Because that just makes another person want to go out and bomb something.
Well, no, we'll cover those because I think that people want to know what's happening in their community. I think, though, that you have to be, and that's one of the things that you figure out over the years, is you have to be very careful about those sorts of things and what you say and how you report it and when you do. And nowadays with live, you know, you can go live stream on Twitter or on Facebook, and you have to be really careful about that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's the same with, say, a situation where the SWAT team is working. You have to be really careful about what you say. I remember a situation in Calgary where one of the radio stations was broadcasting where the SWAT team was, and police had to tell them, you know, that's not a good idea because there's a guy in there with a gun, and we don't want him knowing where we're sneaking up on him and stuff.
That makes sense.
But those are the sorts of things that you have to take into consideration.
Okay, changing the subject again. Hockey. You've been in hockey forever. Are you still playing?
I'm still playing.
And you played Boston Pizza League until you're, what, 55 or something?
Something like that.
Holy jeez.
Yeah, maybe even older, unfortunately, which is silly.
So now you're playing old timers
now. And with some friends on Friday nights.
Yeah, so that's still a big part of your life. And you got, I mean...
This was the first summer I've taken summer hockey off for probably 40 years.
Isn't that unbelievable?
I thought I would heal, and I didn't.
Are you? It's funny how that works.
And I'm not better.
Yeah. Are you still liking the game though? Is that?
Oh yeah.
It's just. I mean, obviously, if you.
I love the game. I don't so much like the competitiveness of it anymore. I don't really care whether I win or lose. I'm competitive for myself. I want to do well.
Yeah.
But I really don't care if we win the tournament or if we win the game or if we win. As long as you play well and you're having fun.
And someone brings the guys bring the beer after.
So, there's got to be somebody to do that.
Terry Vogt, Grandpa G, thank you so much. All right.
No problem. Anytime.
All right. Next Thursday.